Chapter 1. The Silent Arrival. The city of New Haven, once a gleaming jewel of human progress, now lay covered in a veil of decay. Towering skyscrapers, remnants of an era long gone, loomed above the streets, their glass windows shattered and broken, letting in the relentless rain that poured down in sheets. The air was thick with the acrid smell of oil, rust, and the constant hum of machines working tirelessly to maintain what little remained of the city's infrastructure. It was a place where dreams had been bought and sold, where the wealthy had once walked proudly under the banner of innovation. But now, it was a place of shadows and dust, a place where the forgotten and the broken came to hide. Among them was Ethan Cole, a mechanic whose workshop was nestled deep within Sector 17, a part of the city that most people had long abandoned. Ethan had lived in New Haven all his life, spending most of it fixing ships, engines, and anything else that came through his door. The work was simple, straightforward, nothing fancy, nothing glamorous. He had no desire to climb the corporate ladder or rise to prominence in the city's underworld. He was content with his life, such as it was, tinkering away in his cramped workshop, the faint glow of neon lights outside casting long shadows across the floor. There was something oddly comforting about the solitude, the rhythmic clicking of tools, and the quiet hum of machines. The world outside was chaotic and unpredictable, and Ethan had long since made peace with the fact that he would always be on the outside looking in. He didn't mind it. He was used to it. People didn't matter much to him. He didn't need friends, didn't need to be seen. The only thing that kept him tethered to the world was his work. The rain had started falling harder that evening, a violent downpour that blurred the lines between sky and ground, washing away the dirt and grime of the streets. The storm echoed in the empty spaces of Sector 17, its sound muffled by the thick concrete walls that surrounded Ethan's workshop. The lights flickered as the power grid strained under the weight of the storm, casting the room into temporary darkness before it sputtered back to life. Ethan had just finished fixing an old maintenance bot when he heard something, a soft thud against the metal door of his workshop. At first, he ignored it. It could have been anything, another stray animal, maybe, or just the storm playing tricks on his senses. But then, the sound came again, louder this time, followed by a faint scraping noise. Curiosity prickled at the back of his mind, but he was reluctant to leave his work behind. He had a schedule, a routine. People didn't come to Sector 17 unless they had no other place to go, and when they did, it was rarely for anything good. Still, something in the pit of his stomach told him this was different. Ethan stood up from his workbench, wiping his hands on a rag as he walked toward the door. The rain hit the metal door with such force that it sounded like gunfire, the sound sharp and jarring in the silence of the room. He hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should just ignore it, go back to his work, and let the storm pass. But something about the rhythm of the noise made his feet move of their own accord. The urgency, the desperation in the tapping, it was a sound that didn't belong in the city. It didn't belong in this part of the city. And that was why Ethan opened the door. When he did, he was met with a sight that would change his life forever. A figure stood before him, drenched to the bone, her hair dark and clinging to her pale face. She was gaunt, her eyes wide with panic, her breathing shallow and erratic as she clutched at the frame of the door, struggling to stay upright. She was tall, far taller than any human woman he had ever seen, and her skin, while a shade of pale olive, carried an ethereal glow, as if she wasn't quite human, as if her presence was somehow out of place in this world. Her clothes, what little remained of them, were tattered, ripped by the storm or some other cruel fate. She was shivering violently, and there was a hollow look in her eyes, one that seemed to speak of hunger and fear beyond what any human could endure. She wasn't just homeless. She was broken, lost in a world that had no place for her. For a moment, Ethan froze. He had seen his fair share of street dwellers, scavengers, and strays seeking shelter in the empty corners of New Haven. But this woman, this being, was different. There was something alien about her, something that seemed both otherworldly and strangely familiar, like a memory just out of reach, like something he had seen in his dreams. Without thinking, his instincts took over. He reached out, gently but firmly, and helped her inside. Her weight was too much for her, and she crumpled into him as he guided her through the door. She was barely conscious, her body trembling with cold, and he quickly moved to help her into a chair by the small heater in the corner of the room. He grabbed a blanket from a nearby shelf, wrapping it around her thin frame, his hands shaking with the uncertainty of the situation. "Hey, it's okay," Ethan muttered, more to himself than to her. "You're safe now. Just sit tight. I'll get you some food. You need to warm up." Her eyes flickered for a moment, as if she were hearing him from far away, but she didn't speak. She just nodded faintly, her lips trembling as she tried to form words that didn't come. Ethan couldn't understand it. There was a kind of desperation in the way she held herself, as though she had been walking for days, perhaps longer. She was starving, dehydrated, and barely able to keep herself upright. And yet, there was something else, something deeper in her gaze that sent a chill down his spine. She wasn't just any homeless person. She wasn't just hungry. She was alien, both in body and in spirit. Ethan quickly moved to the small kitchen, his mind racing. He wasn't sure what to do next. He wasn't prepared for something like this. A part of him wanted to turn away, to leave her to fend for herself in a city that had no mercy for anyone, let alone someone like her. But another part of him, one he couldn't quite ignore, told him that he couldn't turn her away. Not like this. He had a small stock of food, nothing fancy, just rations and canned goods he had kept for himself during the long stretches of silence in the workshop. As he prepared the meal, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman. Who was she? Where did she come from? What had brought her to this place in such a state of desperation? And more importantly, what was she? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft sound behind him. He turned to find her staring at him with wide, exhausted eyes. She looked different now, less frantic, her gaze more focused, as if she were processing something. Ethan set the meal down in front of her, not knowing what else to say. He had no answers, no way of understanding what had just happened. "Eat," he said softly, his voice rough. "You need it." She reached for the food, her hands trembling as she took the bowl. Her eyes never left his, and for a moment, they shared a silence that spoke volumes. There was a strange connection between them, a silent understanding that transcended words. She was hungry, homeless, an alien, and he had given her shelter. But in that simple act of kindness, something had changed. Something had begun that neither of them could have predicted. Ethan watched as she ate slowly, her movements careful, as if she were afraid the food would disappear if she moved too quickly. And as she ate, he realized that whatever was about to come next, whatever changes the future held, he was no longer the same person he had been an hour ago. He had crossed a line, crossed a threshold that could never be undone. The woman, this alien, was here to stay, and with her, the world he knew would never be the same again. The woman ate quietly, as though every bite was both a relief and a challenge. Ethan watched her closely, trying to piece together what little he could from her odd behavior. Her hands shook, her body trembling beneath the warmth of the blanket, but she was clearly grateful for the food. Her eyes darted around the room as if she were trying to understand everything she saw, but couldn't quite place it in her mind. She was foreign to him in every sense of the word, her mannerisms, her appearance, even the way she held herself, fragile yet purposeful. Her long, dark hair hung in wet strands around her face, and as she ate, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that she was other, something far beyond his understanding. The glow she carried with her, a faint yet noticeable shimmer, was the most obvious clue to her origins, but it was more than just that. It was the way her presence seemed to bend the very air around her, subtly and almost imperceptibly, like a force of nature. As she finished the meal, she leaned back against the chair, her eyes still fixed on Ethan. A soft sigh escaped her lips, and for the first time since her arrival, she spoke, her voice faint but clear, as if she were finding the words with effort. "Thank you," she whispered, her accent strange, like nothing Ethan had ever heard before. You saved me." Ethan gave a small nod, unsure of what to say. He had no idea who she was, where she came from, or how she had ended up in his doorstep. Her words didn't make sense. She was the one who needed saving, not him. Yet there she was, seated before him, her alien presence shifting the atmosphere of the room. He wanted to ask her more, to dig into the mystery of her sudden appearance, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. She was exhausted, drained both physically and mentally. Pushing her would only make things worse. "You're welcome," Ethan finally said, his voice low, almost cautious. "You needed help." I couldn't just leave you out there. The woman nodded again, her eyes filled with gratitude. But there was something else lurking there, something that flickered in her gaze, deep, unfathomable sadness that only made her even more distant. The longer she stayed in his workshop, the more it became clear. This wasn't just a chance encounter. Something had brought her here, and it wasn't mere coincidence. She wasn't just hungry, homeless, and alien. She was a puzzle, one that Ethan wasn't sure he was equipped to solve. There was a long silence between them. The room felt heavier now, the air thicker, as if the weight of the unknown pressed down on both of them. The city outside roared with the usual noise of traffic, a constant reminder that life continued outside, indifferent to what happened inside the walls of Ethan's small workshop. But in here, with the woman sitting before him, it felt as though time had slowed, the moment stretching out, heavy with meaning. She was an enigma, a riddle wrapped in a mystery that Ethan couldn't ignore. After what felt like an eternity, the woman shifted in her seat, her gaze lifting toward him with a quiet intensity. She spoke again, her words deliberate, as if choosing each one carefully. I'm not from here, she said, her voice soft but steady. I am not from your world. The weight of her statement hung in the air, and Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He swallowed, trying to comprehend what she was saying. I figured as much, he muttered, his mind racing. You're not exactly from around here, are you? He wanted to make light of it, to break the tension in the room, but there was no humor in his voice. The truth was, he had known since the moment she'd collapsed on his doorstep that she was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. But to hear her say it so plainly sent a shiver down his spine. Her eyes didn't leave his. There was an unsettling calm in her gaze, as though she had accepted her fate long ago. No, she answered, her voice quieter this time, almost like a confession. I came here. By accident. My ship. It crashed. I didn't mean to land here. But I don't know how to leave. Ethan frowned, confused. Crash. He glanced toward the window, the city lights glimmering through the rain. What kind of ship? Are you talking about a space vessel? One that crashed on Earth? The woman nodded slowly, her face contorting into an expression of pain, as if just speaking the words hurt her. Yes, she said. A vessel from my people, from my home. But it's not important anymore. My people, they are gone. Her voice faltered slightly, a deep sadness flickering through her words. I am the last. And now I am stranded here, on your world. A world I don't understand. Ethan's mind was racing. He had never dealt with anything like this, never encountered anyone, alien or otherwise, who had fallen from the stars. He had heard the rumors of sightings, of strange ships, of things that couldn't be explained, but this was different. This was real. And she was real, sitting right in front of him, vulnerable and desperate. How did you end up here? Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. How did your ship crash? Her eyes grew distant, as if recalling a painful memory. It was a malfunction. The ship was damaged in a system failure. I tried to stabilize it, but the damage was too much. I was ejected, and then I fell. She paused, looking at him intently. I am sorry. I don't remember much. Only that I ended up here. In the rain, in the cold. The truth was starting to sink in for Ethan. This wasn't just a woman. She was an alien, a being from beyond the stars, someone who had traveled across the vast expanse of space, only to find herself stranded in a world that was completely foreign to her. The weight of her words pressed down on him, and despite the strangeness of the situation, he knew one thing. He couldn't turn her away. She was alone, and whether he liked it or not, he had a responsibility to help her. But as much as he wanted to help, there was something in her that worried him, deep, untold sadness, a sense that she had been broken by something far beyond the wreck of her ship. The silence stretched between them again, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of a responsibility he hadn't asked for. He didn't know what to do. How could he help her? What could he possibly offer someone so far from home, from everything she knew? The woman, sensing his turmoil, gave him a small, sad smile. I will not stay long, she said softly, her voice calm. I just need a place to rest, to recover. After that, I will leave. I will find a way to leave this world and go back to my people. Ethan couldn't bring himself to believe that. She didn't belong here, and despite her best efforts to push him away, he knew there was more to her story, more to this encounter than she was letting on. She was here for a reason, and whether she realized it or not, The galaxy was somehow intertwined with her fate. He nodded, slowly, uncertain of how to respond. "All right," he said, the weight of his words settling in. "You can stay here for as long as you need." As she sat there, resting under the blanket, the rain outside seemed to soften, as though even the heavens were taking a breath with them. The air in the workshop felt still, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just opened a door to something far larger than himself. Something that would change everything. Chapter 2. The Alien's Request. The days that followed were unlike any Ethan had ever experienced. Despite the stormy night she arrived, the woman, whose name she had yet to share, recovered quickly. It wasn't just the food and warmth that healed her, there was something unnatural about her recovery, something beyond what any human could manage. Her energy returned with a speed that left Ethan both awed and cautious, as though her body was capable of healing at a rate that defied earthly biology. She was still an enigma, though. She refused to speak much about her origins or the details of her home planet, always deflecting any attempts to learn more. Instead, she focused on her physical recovery, and Ethan let her. He didn't push her. Not yet. There was a part of him that wanted to understand her, to know who she was, where she came from, and why she had arrived in this broken city. But another part of him, the part that had grown comfortable with solitude, was hesitant. She was different. She wasn't just an alien in the literal sense. There was something deeper in her presence, something he couldn't quite place. Yet as the days passed, something began to shift between them. Ethan found himself thinking about her constantly. He was used to isolation, to working alone in his workshop, but now, the silence of his world felt different. She was there, in the background of his thoughts, pulling him into a world he never thought he'd have to face. One afternoon, as he worked on a broken-down speeder engine in the back of the workshop, he heard her voice behind him. It was low, careful, almost as if she were testing the air before speaking. "I need your help," she said, her words cutting through the hum of the machines. Ethan paused, wiping his hands on a rag as he turned to face her. Her face was serious now, the calm demeanor that had marked her recovery replaced with something more urgent. "I've repaired my ship," she continued, "or what remains of it. But there's something I must do before I leave. There's a place I need to go, a destination, and I need you to come with me." Ethan blinked in confusion, his heart rate picking up at the unexpected request. "You need me to come with you? Where?" The woman's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "To the heart of the city," she said, her voice quiet but filled with determination. "There is something there, something I cannot do alone." Ethan's mind raced as he processed her words. The heart of the city? It didn't make sense. The heart of New Haven was nothing but a maze of underworld dealings, crumbling infrastructure, and forgotten technology. What could she possibly need there? What did she mean by something I cannot do alone? He glanced at her, taking in her intensity, the way she stood with an unwavering resolve despite the fact that just days ago, she had been on the brink of collapse. "I don't understand," Ethan finally said, his voice low and cautious. "Why would you want to go to the heart of the city? It's dangerous out there. You've barely recovered, and dash." "I know the risks," she interrupted, her voice steady, almost pleading now. "But I can't leave this planet. I can't go back to where I came from unless I do this. It's crucial. For both of us." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his skepticism growing. She was speaking in riddles again. The sense of urgency in her voice was almost magnetic, and though every instinct in him screamed to resist because it was dangerous, because she was alien, because he didn't understand any of it, something in her plea made him hesitate. He wiped his hands on his grease-streaked overalls, not sure if he was walking into a trap or if he was about to make a decision that would change the course of his life. He met her gaze, searching her eyes for any trace of deception, but all he found was a quiet desperation that mirrored his own desire to understand the truth. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why do you need me to come with you? You seem capable enough on your own." The woman lowered her gaze for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost wistful. "My people. They have a way of communicating. We share a bond with the planet itself. We connect with it through a kind of resonance, a frequency that allows us to interact with its life force. It's how we travel, how we understand the worlds we visit. But it's been lost to me since I crashed here. The ship was damaged, and that connection was severed. The only way to restore it is to reach the source, the heart of New Haven." There is something there, something buried deep beneath the city, and I need your help to unlock it. The words she spoke sent a chill through Ethan. Something buried beneath the city? He had heard rumors of ancient tech, of things long lost beneath the layers of New Haven's endless expansion, but this was different. This wasn't some relic from the past. This was something vital, something alive. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, his voice trembling slightly. You want me to help you unlock? What? A hidden power beneath New Haven? She nodded, her face serious, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, an emotion that Ethan couldn't place, but one that made his gut tighten with both fear and curiosity. Yes, I don't have the means to access it alone. I need you. Not just because of your knowledge of this world, but because of something else. Your frequency. It resonates with mine. Your presence here is not by chance. Ethan could barely keep up with what she was saying. The more she spoke, the more his head spun. But one thing was clear. She needed his help, and despite everything in him telling him to refuse, to walk away and leave this madness behind, something pulled at him. It wasn't just the mystery of her presence or the strangeness of her words. It was the raw vulnerability she had shown him, the quiet trust in her eyes. All right, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, almost as if he were speaking to himself. I'll help you, but you have to promise me you'll tell me what's really going on. I can't keep walking blind into whatever this is. The woman nodded, relief flooding her features. I will. But for now, we must move quickly. With that, she stood, her movements graceful and fluid, the blanket falling from her shoulders as she turned to lead the way. Ethan stood slowly, still trying to process the gravity of the decision he had just made. He grabbed his jacket and followed her, stepping out into the dark streets of New Haven. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the city felt colder than ever, as if something was stirring beneath the surface. As they made their way through the narrow alleyways, the sounds of the city loomed around them, distant conversations, the hum of machines, the clatter of foot traffic, but it all felt muffled, distant, as if the city itself were holding its breath. What exactly are we looking for? Ethan asked, his voice low as he kept pace beside her. The core, she replied simply, her eyes focused straight ahead. The ancient technology that powers this city. It's older than New Haven itself, buried deep beneath its foundations. My people built it, but it has been forgotten, hidden in plain sight. I need to unlock it. Only then will I be able to go home. Ethan nodded, though his mind was still spinning. There was something about her calmness that was almost contagious, making him feel more certain about their path, even if the details were unclear. The longer they walked, the more he felt the weight of what was coming. The city stretched out before them like a vast labyrinth, and somewhere in the middle, in its very heart, lay the key to the woman's past and possibly his own future. Chapter 3. Into the Depths. The heart of New Haven was not a place that many people willingly ventured into. The sprawling city had been built over layers of older cities, each one forgotten and buried as the metropolis expanded outward, devouring its own history in its ceaseless growth. The core, as the woman had called it, was a place of old machinery, hidden pathways, and structures long lost to time. For centuries, it had been left alone, its secrets locked away under layers of concrete, steel, and the grime of the city's ever-growing sprawl. Ethan had heard rumors of people who'd tried to find it, the treasure hunters, the thrill-seekers, the outcasts, but no one had ever returned. There were stories of people being swallowed by the depths, of ancient machines that still hummed with life, waiting for someone to trigger their power once more. And yet, despite the risks, despite the uncertainty, the woman beside him moved with purpose, like someone who had seen these ruins before, like someone who knew exactly where to go. As they neared the entrance to the underground tunnels, Ethan felt a sense of unease settle in his chest. The streets had become narrower, the buildings more dilapidated, as if they were approaching a forgotten corner of the city, an area that hadn't seen light in years. The air felt colder now, heavier, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Are we sure about this? Ethan asked, his voice thick with hesitation. The woman turned to him, her eyes unwavering. There is no turning back. If we want to restore what's been lost, we must face what lies beneath. With those words, she led the way, and Ethan followed, his heart pounding in his chest. The entrance to the tunnels was hidden behind an old, rusted door at the end of an alleyway. As they entered, the air grew musty, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the narrow, winding passageways. The walls seemed to close in around them, as if the city itself was alive, watching them move deeper into its forgotten heart. The deeper they went, the more Ethan realized just how ancient this part of the city truly was. The walls were lined with intricate designs, symbols carved into stone, and strange machines that seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie light. Everything about the place felt wrong, as if they had stumbled into a world far older than anything they had known. "We're getting close," the woman said, her voice low, as if she were speaking to herself. "The core is just ahead." Ethan's steps faltered. He could feel it now. Something was stirring deep within the city, something ancient, something that had been waiting for them. But what was it? What were they about to uncover? The woman stopped in front of a large, heavy door, her hand resting on the cold metal. She turned to Ethan, her expression serious. "This is it. The core." Ethan nodded, trying to steady his breathing. Whatever lay beyond this door would change everything. She pressed a sequence of symbols into the door's surface, and with a heavy creak, the door slowly opened, revealing a vast chamber filled with glowing energy and machinery unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The room was alive, pulsing with an eerie, almost sentient hum. And in the center of it all was an ancient device, its shape both beautiful and terrifying, a relic of a time long past. "This is it," the woman whispered. "The heart of New Haven. The heart of my people." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. As the door closed behind them, the chamber seemed to swallow them whole, and he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The chamber was vast, far larger than anything Ethan had expected. Its sheer size seemed to swallow the light from their torches, the faint glow from the walls casting eerie shadows that danced and shifted, as if alive. The air was thick with the scent of metal and old technology, the kind of smell that only ancient machinery could produce. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest as he took in the scene. In the center of the room, like the heart of a forgotten god, was the machine, the core. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a colossal structure of twisting, interconnected metal that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The surface shimmered, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light, and tendrils of energy arced between its various components, as if it were some kind of living organism. It hummed with power, an ancient energy that vibrated in the very air, sending shivers down Ethan's spine. The woman stepped forward, her eyes locked on the core, her face a mixture of awe and determination. "This is what I came for," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the low hum of the machinery. "This is the last relic of my people's legacy. The technology they used to travel between the stars, to communicate with the cosmos, is here, hidden beneath the city. My people left it behind when they fled, but now, I can finally unlock it." Ethan could barely comprehend what she was saying. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. Everything about this place, the machinery, the energy, the woman herself felt like it was from a world far beyond his understanding. Yet, despite his confusion and growing unease, he couldn't deny the sense of importance that hung in the air. The fate of something vast was tied to this moment, something beyond New Haven, beyond his world. He realized that his role in this was no longer just a matter of curiosity. He was here for a reason, and the woman, this alien, had chosen him. The woman reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against the surface of the core. The moment she made contact, the room seemed to come alive. The hum of the machinery grew louder, the lights brightened, and tendrils of energy surged from the core, wrapping around her hand like a living thing. Ethan watched in awe as the air thickened with an almost tangible energy, a crackling charge that filled the room with a strange, electric buzz. "I need you to help me," she said, her voice strained but firm. She turned to Ethan, her eyes filled with urgency. "Place your hand here, on the surface, where mine is. You have a resonance, a connection that matches the core's energy. You can help me unlock it." Ethan hesitated, his mind screaming in protest. Everything inside him screamed to leave, to run as far as possible from this strange, alien technology. But then he looked at the woman, this creature who had come from the stars, who had trusted him enough to bring him here. There was no turning back now. If he didn't help, if they didn't unlock whatever this was, they would both be lost. He stepped forward, his hand trembling as he reached toward the core. The moment his hand touched the surface, everything changed. The world around him seemed to distort, the air warping, as if reality itself was being reshaped. The room stretched and contracted, the light from the core flashing brighter than 1,000 suns. Ethan's heart raced, his body shaking as the energy of the core coursed through him, filling him with a power he had never known. His senses expanded, and for a brief, terrifying moment, he felt connected to everything: the stars, the city, the woman beside him, and something far beyond all of it. It was as if he could see the fabric of the universe itself, threads of time and space weaving together in an intricate tapestry. Then, just as quickly as it began, the sensation vanished, and Ethan was left standing, panting, in the heart of the chamber. His hand still rested on the core, and the woman was beside him, her expression one of profound relief. "It's done," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "We've unlocked it. The connection is restored. I can feel it, the power, it's all here, waiting." Ethan blinked, still struggling to understand what had just happened. He could feel it too, the energy in the room, the shift in the atmosphere, but he didn't understand how it was possible. How had he been able to connect with the core? What had he just experienced? The woman turned to face him, her eyes now filled with gratitude and something deeper, something almost reverential. "Thank you," she said softly. "I never could have done this alone. You've helped me more than you can understand. You've restored what was lost." Ethan shook his head, still trying to grasp the enormity of what had just occurred. "I didn't do anything. You did it." "No," she corrected, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You were the key. You always have been." The energy in the room shifted again, this time settling into a steady hum that resonated through the walls. The core, now fully activated, seemed to respond to their presence, its power pulsing steadily, as if alive. Ethan could feel the vibrations in his bones, the hum of something ancient and powerful reverberating through the very fabric of the city. The woman stood, her eyes closed, as though she were listening to something only she could hear. Then, she opened her eyes and looked directly at him. "It's time," she said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. "You helped me unlock the core, but now I must return home. The ship is ready, and so am I. But there's one thing left for you to know, one thing I've hidden from you until now." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" The woman stepped closer, her expression serious. "I didn't just bring you here for the technology," she said. "I brought you because of who you are. You're not just some random mechanic. You're the descendant of my people's greatest ally, the one who helped us during the Great Exodus. Your family line carries the key to understanding this technology. Your connection to the core is more than just chance. It's destiny." Ethan's mind reeled. "Wait, you're telling me that my family was involved with all of this? With your people?" "Yes," she said, her voice softening. "Long ago, your ancestors made a pact with my people. They helped us escape a war, and in return, they were entrusted with knowledge that has been passed down through generations. And now, it's your turn to decide how to use it." Ethan stood in stunned silence. His entire life had been a series of disconnected moments, one after the other. A mechanic, a loner, someone who fixed broken things for a living. He had never thought of himself as part of something greater. But now, standing in the heart of this alien technology, he realized how wrong he had been. The woman stepped back, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "I cannot stay here. My people need me, and I must return. But I leave you with a choice. Stay, continue your life here in New Haven, or take up the mantle of your ancestors. The power we've unlocked can change the course of history, but only if you're willing to use it." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never considered anything like this, never thought of himself as someone who could shape the future of an entire civilization. But as he looked at the woman, this alien, this beacon of hope, he knew one thing for certain. The world he knew had just changed forever. Without a word, the woman turned, her back to him as she stepped toward the glowing core. "The ship is waiting. It's time for me to go. Will you join me?" Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the choice heavy on his shoulders. He had spent his life in the shadows, a simple mechanic fixing broken things. But this was different. This was bigger than anything he could have imagined. With a deep breath, Ethan stepped forward, placing his hand on the core once more. He felt the connection flare to life, the resonance between him and the ship intensifying. His ancestors' legacy, the power of the core, it was all there, within his grasp. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, Ethan knew what he had to do. "I'll go with you," he said quietly, his voice filled with determination. "Let's change everything." The woman turned to him, a smile gracing her lips. "Then come, Captain. It's time to begin." And as they stepped together toward the waiting ship, Ethan realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The journey ahead would be difficult, dangerous even, but it was a journey he had to take. For the sake of his ancestors, for the future of this alien world, and for the life that lay ahead of him, Ethan had made his choice. The past had brought him here, but the future was his to shape. And so, with the hum of ancient power in his veins, Ethan Cole began a new chapter of his life, one that would echo across the stars.